in the UK from him saying, why don't you come on board and do this for your country? So I guess it's in my blood, and yeah, I had mixed feelings, as I say, but I think it really was this life-changing experience, and I wouldn't swap that for the world.
Did your dad work with the UFO situation at all, or was it just you?
No, he didn't. He was really involved at the senior policy level on the science side. So, nuclear, chemical, biological, aerospace, looking at next generation aircraft, missiles, drones, that sort of thing. But we did talk about it, obviously, and that made for some fairly interesting conversations over the dinner table sometimes.
So when you first told your dad, okay, Dad, I'm going to work in the UFO program, what did he think?
Well, I think he, like me, thought, wouldn't you be better off getting a job in SecDef's office and something like that? And, I said, absolutely, I know, I get that. But I thought, there was something about it. I thought this does sound intriguing. And when I started pulling the files out and reading the things in the archives, I was like, wait a minute. The public line is that they say all this is nonsense and crazy stuff and conspiracies. But here we've got, and I had access to all this, highly classified files where we saw that pilots were seeing these things. They were being tracked on radar. They were being picked up on the space tracking radar systems that we have for ballistic missile early warning. And I was like, wow, this is a game changer.
So now, your time at the government comes to an end. What made you decide to come out and start talking about everything?
Well, I should say I'm not a whistleblower. I play by the rules, and actually the answer to your question is they asked me to. I had taken early retirement in 2006, and then in 2007, 2008, they came to me and said, look, we're going to declassify and release a lot of the British government's UFO files. And of course, my name was all over them. It's like, well, you wrote a lot of these. So they asked me to come back and act as a sort of spokesperson to champion this as a story to show our commitment to open government and freedom of information. So actually, it was the Ministry of Defense themselves that asked me to speak out about it. But once my name got out, obviously, people are like, well, okay, this is the guy that did this. I think the media called me the real life Fox Mulder or something, which was quite fun. And now whenever there's a UFO story, whether it's in the UK or even in the US where I now live, the media often come to me and say, well, look, we know that you're not a whistleblower, you're not going to divulge classified information, but can you give us an insider perspective?
Roswell being one of the biggest incidents in at least American alien history. What do you think about Roswell? Like, what do you believe happened?
Well, Roswell is literally the ground zero of the UFO phenomenon. People say that in the summer of 1947, something crashed. And if you look at the historical record, even the US military admit that. Nobody would have heard of this were it not for the fact that the US Army Air Force, as it was at the time, the US Air Force had yet to be created, but the US Army Air Force caused a press release to be issued, which essentially said, look, we've had these so-called flying saucer sightings. Flying saucer fever had swept the United States for a few weeks in the summer. And then the US military said, we have recovered one of these flying discs. And then within 24 hours, they said that they'd made a mistake and that it was just a weather balloon. But obviously, then the story was out. I talked to Jesse Marcel Jr. He was 9 or 10 years old at the time, and his father was the intelligence officer who actually recovered this. And he woke his family up in the middle of the night with this somber look on his face, and he said, I want to show you something that I'll never be able to show you again, and that will change the way you look at the world. And he pulled out this piece of wreckage. It was metal, really super tough, and yet he scrumpled it up like a little piece of paper, and then it springed back. People have used the phrase memory metal, and so Jesse Marcel's wife and his son, who I talked to when decades later, and he had tears in his eyes remembering this, and he said it changed my life forever. He said the world that I thought I lived in, it like died that day, and I knew that there was something else, something bigger than this, and that's kind of spooky.
Now we have the whistleblower that came out. None of it is completely like, whoa, I've never heard that before. So it brings me back to an incident, is the Murray Island incident in 1947. Have you heard of that one?
I have. I've not researched it in any great detail, but I know that the US government has some files on it. I can't really pretend that I know the details and go into any particular level on that. But what I will say is, I mean, you mentioned the whistleblower, David Grush. Mm-hmm. And whether it's Murray Island or whether it's Roswell or whether it's some of the other cases that people are talking about, a lot of times these things were just regarded as science fiction, crazy conspiracy stuff. You would say, well, this is just anonymous people speaking on conspiracy forums on the internet. Now with David Grush, this guy was former US intelligence community. I have spoken to, I think, 3 retired intelligence community folks who say, yeah, I knew Dave. You know, I worked with him. So he is 100% who he says he is, and he worked on the Department of Defense's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, and he is confirming whether it's Murray Island, whether it's Roswell, but particularly crashes. He's basically saying, yeah, this is real. This is what we in the intelligence community were briefed on, and now Congress is going after trying to find these legacy programs that David Grush and other people have been speaking about.
The reason why I bring up Murray Island is that it's one of the first incidents that we hear of the Men in Black. And now you have this guy coming out being able to just freely talk. So my question is, like, change to be able to speak so freely without having to worry about possibly the government shutting you down.
Well, David Grush arguably was a real life Man in Black, and some people have said the same about me. But now Dave has said that his shortly after he went public with this, his house was broken into, and these are deep insiders. So there is a bit of a power struggle going on right now. There are factions within the US government on this. There's a kind of faction that wants this all out, and there is, well, I guess you could call it the Men in Black faction. And so with Maury Island, yeah, I mean, I don't know whether those people were government, G-men trying to keep a lid on this or something else, but consistently for decades now, we've had these stories. I mean, governments are inherently, of course, secretive organizations. The default position with these folks is to say nothing, and I get that. I did that myself. So whether it's just that or whether it's something a little bit more X-Files, I don't know.
Have you ever felt like there were topics that you just didn't want to discuss?
Well, I know where the line is. I mean, I can't obviously discuss classified information on UFOs or on anything, ever.
Yeah.
Even though I left the British government in 2006, obviously my secrecy oath binds me for life, and I take that very seriously. And you know, there are rules and processes for whistleblowers, and people have got to go through that. And even with people like David Grush, it's not like they're dumping all this classified information into the public domain. These people are patriots, and they know that if you reveal something, you know, people say the American people have a right to know. I get that. But when you tell the American people, unfortunately, you also tell the governments in China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. So you have to be careful, and there's a process, and all of us follow that. But as I say, I know where the line is. I don't cross it. So I have been quite comfortable with that. I've never been threatened, and I always play it straight and down the line.
Comes to the radio broadcast of 1947 Roswell, they said the debris was brought to Wright Field, Ohio. And now we have, you know, the Space Force coming out, and they have a branch, Delta 18, coming out of Wright-Patterson, and they're flying a flag that almost could be the Ancient Aliens logo. Have you seen that?
I have. I mean, there is this kind of almost culture in the military and in the intelligence community with these patches and these logos of almost, like, I don't want to say playing a joke on people or a prank, but you know, maybe trying to slip something out in coded form. If you look at some of the sample return missions, the one that went to the asteroid Bennu, it's called OSIRIS-REx, and you know, you could say, some people have looked at that and they've said, Osiris, what does that mean? Osiris is our king, Osiris is our god, Osiris is returning. There is this thread of belief and interest in the occult and the paranormal and the ancient gods that runs through a lot of the military and the intelligence community and the government. And I've seen that myself. I haven't been a part of it, but I've come across it. And it's interesting, and I think there are people who genuinely believe in, I suppose you'd term it, the old gods, the ancient ones, and I don't know.
So when you guys,
be interesting.
You know, you're friends with all the guys with the Ancient Aliens. Like, when you guys saw that branch of the Space Force come out flying that flag, did you guys all kind of chuckle? Like, you know, to me, I couldn't believe it. It almost makes it seem like everything on the show is factual. Yeah,
well, I think a lot of it is. I think in years to come, people will look back and say, hey, this was a documentary. So I think, yeah, we saw that, of course, and you know, the folks that do Ancient Aliens, Giorgio Tsoukalos, David Childress, William Henry, Travis Taylor, myself, a lot of others, Linda Moulton Howe, saw that, and we thought, yeah, you know, I get that. And you look at someone like Travis Taylor, of course, people see him on Ancient Aliens and The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and then it was revealed by the Department of Defense press office that he had been serving as the chief scientist on the Pentagon's UAP task force. So there are some of us involved in these programs, of course, who have done this from the inside, and we're not, you know, I don't want to kind of sound like we're having a joke at people's expense. We're not. We're genuinely trying to get information out, and sometimes that's the best way to do it. You know, the best place to hide a book is in a library. There's a lot that's hidden in plain sight.
About last week or 2 weeks ago, I got the chance to talk to Kathleen Martin, you know, Betty and Barney Hill. my biggest question to her was asking her towards the end of our discussion what she believed these beings to be, and primarily if they were good or bad. She said that you shouldn't be scared of them. They are just scientists. So now for you working for the government, and I'm not sure how much pressure you felt like right now from everything that's going on, even from the whistleblower coming out and saying that they might not be as friendly as we would hope. Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with Dave Grush on this, actually. I think within government, there is this mindset that